You know, some journeys aren't measured in miles. They're measured by the way they change history itself. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most pivotal journeys ever undertaken, the Hijrah. This was so much more than just a trip from one city to another. It was a divinely guided migration that would literally mark a new beginning for the world. Let's dive into the story of this profound journey. Just try to imagine that for a second. Standing in the city where you were born, the home of your ancestors, knowing you have to leave it all behind, possibly forever. This one quote just captures the incredible sadness of that departure. This wasn't some casual decision. It was a moment filled with the heavy, heavy wake of sacrifice. So that begs the question, why leave? Well, as we're about to see, this migration wasn't just about escaping. It was a necessary move in the face of a growing crisis. And most importantly, it was a direct command from the divine. The situation in Makkah had become completely toxic. For the early Muslims, even the simplest acts of faith, of just practicing their beliefs, were being met with constant abuse and physical harm. The community was really at a breaking point. The very survival of their faith depended on finding a new home, a place where they could finally live and worship in peace. And what's so fascinating here is this element of divine timing. You have the Prophet's closest friend, Abu Bakr, who was so eager to make the journey himself. But he was told, wait, be patient. This wasn't a no. It was a promise, a hint that something much bigger was being planned, a monumental journey that they would share. Okay, so let's get into the plan itself. Because when that divine permission finally arrived, it set into motion one of the most careful, secret, and intricate escape plans in history. And the whole thing was built on a foundation of just absolute trust. This signal was so subtle, but for Abu Bakr, it was crystal clear. The Prophet, peace be upon him, showed up at his house at a really unusual time of day, with his head covered. Abu Bakr knew right away. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for was finally here. The journey had begun. This is just a brilliant example of the incredible network of people that made this whole thing possible. I mean, every single detail was thought through. They hired a professional guide who wasn't even a Muslim, just for his expertise of the desert. Food was prepared with amazing quick thinking by Asma. Intelligence on their pursuers was gathered every single night by Abu Bakr's own son, and a freed slave used his flock of sheep to erase their tracks and provide milk. This was just a masterclass in strategy, courage, and teamwork. So the plan leads them to their first hiding place, and probably the most dangerous part of the whole escape. This is where the story shifts from a secret getaway to a nail-biting standoff with their pursuers hot on their trail. For 3 long nights, a tiny, dark cave on Mount Thawr was their entire universe. Outside, they could hear the search parties combing the mountainsides. But inside, there was nothing but patience, prayer, and the unbreakable bond of 2 companions against the world. And the stakes here? They couldn't have been higher. The Quraysh put out a massive bounty on the head of the Prophet, peace be upon him, 100 camels. To put that in perspective, that was an absolute fortune. So this wasn't just a search party anymore. This was a full-blown manhunt, attracting the best trackers and bounty hunters from all over. And now we get to the absolute climax of the story. This is that moment where all the meticulous human planning in the world has reached its absolute limit, and now everything comes down to a pure test of faith. These trackers were the best of the best. They followed the footsteps right to the entrance of the cave. The pursuers were literally standing right there, just outside. If a single one of them had just glanced down, it would have been all over. The tension in that moment is just unimaginable. And Abu Bakr, in this moment of just complete human vulnerability, says what anyone would be thinking. He states the terrifying, simple fact of their situation. There was no plan B, nowhere else to run. He's voicing that fear we'd all feel, with the enemies so close you can almost hear them breathe. But the response, it's one of the most powerful expressions of absolute faith ever spoken. The Prophet, peace be upon him, calms his friend not with a new strategy, but with a fundamental truth. He reminds him, we are not alone. It was a shift from fear to absolute certainty in divine protection. And right then, this divine veil appears. The pursuers look at the entrance of the cave, and what do they see? A perfect, unbroken spider's web. Their own logic told them, well, if anyone had gone in there, the web would be torn. Convinced it was empty, they turned around and left, never knowing they were inches away from their prize.
So, with the immediate danger gone, the whole feeling of our story changes. The journey isn't over yet, but it's no longer about hiding and fear. Now it becomes a journey of hope, a journey towards a brand new beginning.
So after those 3 days, they finally came out of the cave and began the last leg of their journey. Their guide took them on this rugged, out-of-the-way coastal path to avoid being spotted. And while all this was happening, an entire city was waiting, their eyes glued to the horizon, just filled with hope. Seriously, can you picture that? Every single morning, the people of Medina, the Ansar, which means the helpers, they would all go out to the edge of the city. They'd wait for hours in the blistering sun, just scanning the horizon for any sign of his arrival, until the heat finally became too much. It was this daily vigil born out of pure love and loyalty.
And then, finally, a man in a watchtower spotted them, two small figures shimmering in the heat. He shouted the news, and the whole city just erupted with joy. And that moment, their arrival, it wasn't the end of a story. It was the very beginning of a new one, the foundation of a new community, a new civilization, built not on bloodlines or tribes, but on a shared faith.
You see, this one migration, from a tiny cave of refuge to a city full of welcome, it launched a new calendar, a new community, and a new center for a faith that would spread across the entire globe. And it leaves us with this incredible question to think about. How can a single dangerous journey, taken by just two companions, truly change the destiny of all of humanity?